welcome to my ideas and theories about what's going on in Salvage. In case you don't know it, it's a horror movie that came out in 2006. It was a low budget and has a lot of really obvious issues, but underneath it all, it has some fantastic ideas, and it has one of the best endings I've ever seen. If you want to see it and can't find the kinda rare DVDs, there was a copy on YouTube last time I checked, linked in the below box. If you'd rather spend about 30 minutes on it rather than 90, there's always my review, which I've also linked below. I'm giving you a few seconds to pause the video and go watch the film or the review if you've not seen any of them before I unleash the spoilers. That's long enough now, on with the spoiling. Duke Desmond is in hell. He's being forced to relive his victim Claire's last day over and over again. That's obvious, but like the film, the exact details are hazy. Like the reveal at the end where Duke is told who he is, murders himself, and then respawns. How much of this does he remember in the next loop? Is the punishment from then on knowing that he's Duke and reliving the day? Again, it's deliberately unclear, but I tend to think he's had the memory that he's Duke stripped away, because Claire's terror and confusion is part of the punishment. Anyway, I'm assuming that his knowledge has been removed. Hell, it's possible that he was told at some point during each murder, and then the knowledge was removed. We didn't see every moment of the murders, though I think this is unlikely. Okay, so the first big question is whether this is an eternal punishment or a burn away your sins kind of punishment. The assumption would be that it's eternal, but the only bit of evidence for that I've noticed was this line from the sheriff.
He's dead.
Dead and gone forever.
Which is clearly not literal because Duke reappears at the end of the film. And what's the evidence that it'll have an ending? Well, there's the presence of Claire and Jimmy during the murder, watching. Obviously, it's mostly there for creep factor, but in universe, I can think of 3 reasons why they'd be there. 1, they're not really there and it's an illusion to fuck with Duke. 2, they're there to watch his suffering. Fun fact, one of the common beliefs in medieval Christianity was that a benefit of being in heaven was being able to watch people be tormented in hell. And 3, they're there to judge whether he suffered enough. And honestly, I think it's 3. I think this is a finite punishment, because what's the real point of Duke keeping the memories of the loops if it's not? To begin with, it heightens the fear, the confusion, yes, but the human mind can become accustomed to just about anything, good or bad, and eventually the murder won't scare him anymore. Hell, he might start to commit suicide to avoid it, but as a finite punishment and a teaching tool it's kind of perfect. Duke has to walk mile upon mile in his victim's shoes, literally seeing her perspective, feeling her pain. If I'm right, this punishment is weaponized empathy, designed to make the person suffer but also improve before they can be released into whatever heaven analog exists in this universe.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
Dante's Inferno is the most famous part of the Divine Comedy, but it's only the first third of the story. The second is the Purgatorio, where Dante has to join people burning away their sins before they can ascend to the Paradiso, heaven. And while I don't think there's a Christian afterlife, I think a similar system applies, and I think the upstairs has an embassy of sorts in the church. Take a look at the long shot of the church's interior. Literally above Jimmy and Duke is the janitor, surrounded by the only true, pure white light of the film. Once you notice this stuff, it's not even subtle. Listen to his first line.
Can I help you?
God, you scared me.
And then he gets called God. This guy never lies to Duke. He's the only person in the film to be totally honest.
His name is Duke Desmond.
He won't hurt you.
Because he's dead, right?
Because he's in hell.
And he's at a distance, but not impossibly so. Hell, I can go even further into this and point out that he's a janitor. He's there to clean stuff up. Now, like I said, I don't think there's a Christian afterlife. I think the town is recreated from Duke, Claire, and Jimmy's memories, and that includes the church. And the church is kind of an embassy from whatever heaven analog the system has. And it's possible that at some point, many loops from now, Duke will enter the church and have suffered enough to finally meet the minister and be forgiven.
Actually, we wanted to talk to a minister.
He's out.
Jimmy even points out that the janitor and the minister are pretty similar.
Ask him.
He's a janitor.
He works in the church. That's pretty close.
That could be a clue for Duke. An extremely hazy clue, but one that might get through after a few decades of loops. Hell, did Claire actually study Dante's Inferno on her last day, or is that another hazy clue for Duke?
Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
Probably the latter, because, really, what are the odds that it's the former? Okay, now that I've explained my view on the punishment, that it's not eternal and kinda like purgatory, let's turn our attention to the other people in the scenario. because some of them are clearly real people and others aren't. What I mean by that is the other people in the town, at least the important ones, aren't constructed whole cloth for the scenario. The majority of the ones that Duke deals with seem to have demons or something controlling them like avatars. Although others, bit parts that Duke isn't meant to interact with, like the librarian, seem to be pretty much automatons or NPCs.
Where do you keep your old newspapers?
Is this for a specific class?
It doesn't matter.
Actually, it does.
Although the librarian might just not be very good at acting.
Did you find what you were looking for?
The reason I think the important supporting characters have demons or something controlling them is because we see glimpses of their real personalities underneath the performance. The most obvious example is Claire's mother, who turns from loving to not on a dime. Most obviously at the end, but there's also a scene where Duke leaves the car and the light goes dark and her expression changes.
Have fun on your date.
She's no longer acting. Jimmy's another good example. He clearly loves his role and is enjoying sticking the knife in, gaslighting and being kind of emotionally abusive to Duke.
Bitch, are you crazy?
What? God, fuck you, Jimmy. You don't even believe me.
I do believe you. There is a ghost. No, I'm sorry. It's just a funny face you just made. I do really think there's a ghost.
Either that's the demon having fun or real Jimmy was an asshole.
I am an asshole.
The sheriff seems to be a punch clock performer. I love his final phone call with Duke near the ending.
Look, I can't tell you what's going on, Claire, but you're gonna find out soon enough.
It's like he's phoning it in, cause he is. And the guy playing Killer Duke mostly doesn't yell, doesn't seem to enjoy his job, and just does it. Like the demon assigned the role really doesn't want to be there. Which explains him almost derailing the whole thing by telling Claire Duke what's going on partway through.
Because all of this is bullshit. You, me, everything. It's all made up. The only thing that's real is what you feel. The only thing that's real in this whole world is what you feel.
I actually had a theory scripted here that the original loop, taking up the first minutes of the film, was Claire's actual murder. And I still think that makes more sense, because Killer Duke was animated in that loop, relishing the pain and fear he caused, toying with his prey.
What the fuck are you doing?
All right then, that's what I'm gonna do, superstar. See you later.
But then he completely changes in subsequent loops to not overacting, being almost an autopilot. But I rewatched the film for this video and there's another quick demon flash that I'd forgotten about. So alas, even though it makes less sense, the first loop is just the first loop. You might wonder how the main characters, except Duke, can have demons playing them, when Killer Duke flat out says that the only thing that's real is Claire Duke.
The only thing that's real in this whole world is what you feel.
That's simple. Like he said, the world is fake, and the demons are controlling the characters like avatars. It's like how the World of Warcraft is fake, but the players are real. Anyway, I have some extra evidence that at least some of the human characters are really demon things, because the one playing the mother seems to also be the one that's haunting the house, randomly rushing past the camera, appearing in the dark, making them easily the most malicious of the demons. Okay, so that's my theory about the demons or whatever, that they're a diverse group, some of whom don't even like tormenting people. Anyway, anything else? Just one more thing, a lingering question. Why Claire instead of Jimmy? And as ever, I have some ideas. One, Claire suffered more than Jimmy. We saw what I assume was Jimmy's death, and it looked marginally better than being beaten half to death and having his face peeled off. Two, maybe he is. Maybe after each death as Claire, he gets reincarnated as Jimmy and lives his last day, dealing with the gaslighting Claire instead, and simply doesn't remember it when he's Claire. An ancient Celtic view of the afterlife was that it was simply another world like this one. When you died in this, you were born there, and when you died there, you were born here. Maybe Duke is going back and forth between two very similar torments, though this seems very complicated. 3, maybe he'll start reliving Jimmy's last day when whoever's in charge of this has decided he's been Claire long enough. Maybe when he's walked enough in her shoes, he'll put on Jimmy's. This works pretty well with the purgatory idea. And 4, Duke is a misogynistic sex pest. Maybe it was decided that living Claire's life, terror and murder, will be a better learning experience for him than Jimmy's. Anyway, those are my thoughts about what's going on in Salvage, based on some thought and watching the film about 12 times. Hope you find it interesting. Please check the film out if you haven't seen it. It's a fantastic and interesting piece of indie cinema history.